Welcome again to Mystic Revolution, the webcast where myself and Wendy R. Wolf discuss all things mystic. Before we get started, please join us for a little meditation. I invite you to close your eyes and just take a nice deep breath deep down into your belly. And then exhale out. And do that again and allow yourself time to do the full breath. There's no rush, there's no hurry. And as you let yourself settle into yourself, see if you can drop out of your head space and down into your heart. Down into your heart, down into your core. And allow that space to illuminate as if there were a beautiful ball of light just getting bigger and bigger right in the center of you. In this work, Wendy and I talk a lot about living from the inside out. And so tuning into your insides, just taking a moment to allow the fullness of you to come into your body even more. And just letting yourself breathe into it and actually breathe that energy through your body. See if you can breathe it down your legs. See if you can breathe it up into your upper chest and down your arms. See if you can breathe it up your throat, into your head space. See if you can allow it to expand into your back. So often we look outside of ourselves for energy, but we can just take a moment and drop in. We can find that there is an infinite regenerative energy source right in our core. So let that beautiful light get bigger and as big as it can be. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. All right. So here we are with Wendy, and today Wendy's going to talk about 7 keys to mastery from within. And we've talked about how mastering your energy is really one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself and for others. And the great thing is we can start with these 7 keys from wherever we are in our journey, from anywhere or everywhere in these practices. We can start and grow into them. And so, Wendy, I'm going to just let you take it from here. Can you introduce us to the 7 keys?
Yes, I would love to. Thanks, Susanna. Like Susanna, I've been a spiritual teacher for a long time, and I've been, I learned some things, but I also have been inquiring about what it is that we need most to be able to be solid within, to be able to perceive, choose, and act as captains of our ship.
Yes.
And so these 7 keys, I think, are so important to be able to find a safe, powerful place to stand within ourselves and be able to move as we choose. So these things that we're going to talk about, they're both energies or blessings or whatever, however you want to say that, vibrations. And frequencies, and they are practices.
Yeah.
And as I find that it's a continual process, I believe, for all of us until we really are well along in our spiritual journey, to be just like flowers opening in these different ways. So I'm just going to just write. There's lots of things I could say about it, but I want to make it more real. So I'm just going
Yeah,
to name them, and then we're just going to jump in, and then maybe we can go back later sometime,
totally.
talk
Perfect.
more, because it's like otherwise it's like la la la. What is she talking about?
Yes.
So I made a acronym. I
Hmm.
think the word is um, to help me remember these seven things, and the acronym is um, yes, I can. So that boils down into freely you, empowered with sovereignty, integrity, certainty, amusement, and neutrality. And I know these are like words that can be used in lots of ways, so we're going to unpack it. But I just wanted to say this is the kind of thing we're talking about: freedom, power, ability to be sovereign or act, um, be a wheel rolling from our own center, Nietzsche said. That's one way to talk about sovereignty. Integrity, being whole and complete. There's lots of ways to talk about that. We'll get to being certain. We've talked about certainty. We've talked about how the truth that we see, we can trust. Amusement, which is taking things lightly, and neutrality, we've talked about too, about not being pulled by judgments and emotionality, but actually just having more spiritual perspective. So those are the
So
seven keys.
let me
What
just
is
say it again. Let me just say it again. You, empowered with sovereignty, integrity, certainty, amusement, and neutrality.
you got it, girl?
Yeah. And all of those things, right? It's from your soul, it's from the inside out, just like we've been talking about. And I love having those very clear vibrational markers that, as you say, it is an energy, it is a mindset, and it is a practice. So great.
Yeah.
Let's go into it.
Yeah. So let's talk about neutrality. And we have talked before, but you can never say too much
Well,
about
wait a minute. So
neutrality.
you're starting at the end. Neutrality
I'm
is the
starting at
last
the
one.
end.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's check
Is that
in.
okay? We're gonna
Yeah.
circumambulate up to being freely you.
Okay,
Um,
got it.
um, yeah, neutrality. So I see two major things in neutrality
Mhm.
when I speak about it. One is equanimity, just, the waves of outrageous fortune come and go, and we can stay here. We can stay in balance. We cannot be overwhelmed. So that's
Yeah.
the first one I like to talk about. And then
Mhm.
the other half of that, and we'll unpack this more, but the other half is spiritual perspective,
Yes.
instead of an emotional perspective or a rational perspective or an instinct perspective or uh, programming other people's opinions. Can we have a higher perspective? Be at the top of the building, looking around, not at the bottom of the building on the street, getting splashed by mud. Can't see anything through all the buildings.
Yeah, I like to think of that as like lifting up above the fray, right? You're just
Yes,
like up and out of the fray. Let's get a clear picture here. So,
yes, and
yeah,
it's a big picture.
it's
It's
a
not.
big
It's
picture.
not a minuscule thing. So I'll just keep talking, and then when you get inspired, you can talk.
Okay.
Um, so another thing to talk about neutrality is that we're identifying, because our identity generally, usually for humans, is where we've been and where we're going. The things that you can name about yourself. Oh, I'm from here and I weigh this much. I'm this tall. I'm from this family. I got these letters after my name because I went to this college. Like on and on about the outside.
Yes.
Um, but in this practice, we play with identifying um, in our own system, but not in any part of our bodies. We identify with there's lots of ways to say this. We usually say as spirit, could say as spirit identified soul, could say as the watcher. People are familiar with that in some ways, as our attention. We take the spark of divine light and we play with identifying with that.
Right. And and the things that you're saying, like sort of at the core of that is being an objective observer.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
being able to see all that is as it is
Yes.
and let it be.
And let it be. And also identifying not with all the physical characteristics or the
Right.
past and the future or what happened to us or what we're
Right.
going to do or any stories.
Yep.
Go beyond the stories to a more spiritual identity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's having more of a spiritual identity, more of a spiritual perception. Yes, we want to notice what's going on with the body and the emotions and the instincts and all the things I keep naming, what the mind is saying. All these things are important, but what is the spiritual perception? What's the
Yes.
spiritual perspective? And can we practice focusing there? So not just getting the physical information, which most of us are very familiar with, but also a more spiritual information and identity.
And I want to underscore what you just said about both of them, because there's a lot of, talk of people spiritually bypassing, like, let's uplift out of what's actually happening and just be spiritual about it.
Yes.
And this is not what we're talking about. This is honoring spiritual perspective in equality with physical spirit perspective, with emotional perspective, with mental perspective, right? We get to choose all of these faculties to work with, but the spiritual perspective, which is really what the show is about,
Yeah.
gives us the ability to take all of these things and then uplift
Yes.
or step back
Yes.
and be able to see and sense even more, but in the framework of witness, of objective observer. And that is where you actually get more information without being overwhelmed because you aren't attaching it to anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the different perspectives that you talked about, that I was talking about, that you talked about, I like to see it as one of the ways I like to see it is bringing all of us to the table, all the perspectives to the table. Everybody
Yeah.
gets a perspective, everybody gets a voice.
Yeah.
The Arthur legend, he was the king of kings, he was the monarch of monarchs, and everybody gets a voice. And I really like that. And the thing about spiritual bypassing is that's about identifying out there, out of the body.
Yeah.
It's like, let me just ignore the body, ignore the life. And when we do that, things go to shit. I just want to say.
Agreed.
But
Totally agreed.
and just be like, la la la, I'm one with all. And like in this practice, we say we're always eternally one with all. But we get these, 100 years or so to play in this body, in this life, doing this thing. And what a blessing can we be here? And a lot of us can't. And that's the practice. Come home to the body, come home to the body,
Yeah.
more and more light in the body.
Yeah. Embodiment.
And neutrality helps us do it with with more intention and more information and less overwhelm,
Yes.
because we're not down in the emotions every minute or the sexuality or the control
Yep.
or the judgments. So yeah, it's very important to talk about this. And also, and I'm sure I've said this before, but it's like this spiritual identity that I'm talking about. They'd be like, oh, that's bypassing. It's like, no, it's the beginning. It's like a little vacation. It's like, oh, I have the spiritual perspective here for a second. Okay, can I start bringing that back into my soul, into my life, into my body, into my world, into my relationships, into my career?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, over here, la la la, I'm life, I'm love, I'm truth, la la la. But then, the rest of my life is going to hell.
Yeah.
Or I'm mistreating my body or my friends or like that's a game that's we see a lot in the
Yeah.
spiritual world. And that's so
Yeah. And that jumps ahead to a key that relates to integrity, but that's later. We aren't there yet, but
yeah, they all interrelate because it relates
they
to
all
sovereignty
enter
too.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So should I go on?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So another thing about neutrality is it's about being free and clear. It's about unhooked. And you did some great work with that. I think did you say the words unhooked in
Yeah.
our last meditation? People love
Yes.
that, right?
Mhm.
It's like,
Unhooked, untethered.
yeah. And if we get to be free, which we'll talk is another one, and clear and not hooked, not a really popular thing for people to talk about lately. It's triggered, and triggered is a thing, and it stimulated, and it's a thing, and it's an important thing to learn to. It's a indicator to heal.
Yeah.
If I have the same issue over and over, um, for years and I'm continuing to be stimulated, that's telling me that I haven't been self-caring.
Yeah.
And what happens, think I've said this too, but it's like I'm wanting the world to be carpeted and not trigger me. I want
Yeah.
the world to be carpeted instead of putting on shoes.
Yeah.
And like, how can I put on shoes or like a cast on a broken leg? How can I cast my broken leg so that I can be healed and walk and be happy?
Yeah.
And that's part of neutrality to learn to unhook from the trauma and the trauma responses
Yeah.
and the everyday BS too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to underscore that, finding neutrality means you tend to them. It doesn't
Yes.
mean that you get to a place that people think, oh, neutrality. You can't be neutral. You have to stand for something. You have to do something. Neutrality that you're talking about, it requires going in, deciding, standing for your own healing, standing
Yes.
for tending to that, deciding, I don't want to get triggered anymore. And allowing yourself, making the definitive choice that you want to allow yourself to have full access to your soul senses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our whole lives too. I
Yes.
mean, it's so, I've dealt with PTSD on several different things, and it's so limiting and it's so painful and it's so
Yes.
scary. And when's it going to hit again? And I'm, when it's really bad, it's like I'm not fully here in this moment, and I'm not fully in charge of myself. It's
Right.
very disturbing,
Yeah.
and that is that stuff that can be handled.
Yes.
So,
Beautiful.
yeah. So this is
Beautiful.
part of neutrality. Do we need
Yeah.
a break?
Uh, Thanks. I'm supposed to be noting that. Yes, it's probably a good, but I love neutrality. It's one of my favorite topics. So thanks for hanging in there a little bit longer. Let's take a quick break and we will be right back.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey friends, Susana and I want to remind you that we offer a Mystic Revolution meditation. It's the first Tuesdays at 4:30 Pacific. Please come as our guest. You can see our website for the link. And thank you for playing with us.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are in the midst of a really great discussion about neutrality. Neutrality and how it's a really important key in mastering your energy. And Wendy was talking about some specific things related to unhooking from beliefs, stories, past hurts, and allowing ourselves to step more fully into our lives. So, Wendy, do you want to continue
More,
on? I know you
more,
do.
sure. Yeah, I do. So I am a huge fan of neutrality, and it's like Susana was pointing out before, it's just so important um, to not bulldoze ourselves about this or each other. Because I mean, it's happened. It's happened to me with people who know these things. It's like, oh, you're not being neutral. It's like this is not something other people up about. This is a practice for me. This is a
Yes.
vibration for me to resonate with so that I can show up you as a healing presence, not so that I can judge you.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of neutrality, by the way. Judgment.
It's totally the opposite. Or yeah, just imposing how we think other people should be. Right? If you're compelled to tell someone that they need to be more neutral, guess who needs to go practice neutrality? Right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like, can I notice, tend to, and become free about my own stories and reactions and programming, etc., and other people's in my own space. So I can just am free to dance to the music that's here.
Yeah.
And I can be here and now and
Yeah.
without the constant shoulds and invalidation, the lies that something's wrong and I suck.
Yeah.
And then also, can we be, then it frees up a whole lot of stuff so that I can be with my body and my body experience and just allow what is happening to happen. I can then notice what my body's desires and needs are, and I can choose how to handle them and eventually, be more captain of my life, which is what all this is leading to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just had a hit of, I was working with a client the other day and talking about how our perfect pictures about how things should be take us out of neutrality, or any if like sort of living with this idea that, oh, when's the other shoe going to drop, right? Or when
Yeah.
something is, nothing ever goes right for me, when's it going to happen, and the bad thing going to happen. And the practice of neutrality, I loved what you said, be here now with, and that's it. In this moment, be here now with.
Yeah.
If we can practice that, it's fascinating how some of the other stuff just starts to unhook and sort of melt away itself. I mean, we can intentionally do some of that, but even just that, I mean, I think it's so powerful. And it's not just be here now, it's be here now with. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that you added that.
Yes. Yeah. It's really, yes, because otherwise, be here now on the top of the mountain, pretending none of the other crap is happening.
Yeah.
But we show up here now we show up in neutrality, and it's like, for us, it's a soft blanket, but it's soft blanket for everybody else too. Almost
Mhm.
everyone else is in, all there's so much upset potential and there's so much striving on and on with the
Yes.
disturbance on the inside.
Yeah.
And we just can show up with this, I don't know, for some reason in this moment it's like this soft blanket of just because who we show up as very much affects the space and the people that we're playing with. And so
Yes.
it's not just for us that we do this. If we want a world that it has more peace, has more equanimity, has more spiritual perspective, then the best way to do it is to be it. And
Yeah.
that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And this is a show for mystics, which are psychics and seers and people who are open to our soul senses, who are interested in delving into how can we be healers? How can we become who we are? How can we deepen in the divine? Like some kind of conversation about operating from soul senses.
Yeah.
And this neutrality is like all of these that we just talked about, and we're probably coming to an end. So I just want to say today we're talking about the 7 keys. We started with neutrality, and it's yes, I can, freely you, empowered with sovereignty, integrity, certainty, amusement, and neutrality. Every single one of these are literally explicitly for mystics to be able to show up within our soul information, dance our lives, be in our bodies, show up for people, and do what we're here to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. And I'm glad we got to start with neutrality. I think underscoring the importance, I mean, we've already talked about it in this session or in this segment and in past, but particularly for those people who are healers and seers, and that is their life's work. The practice of neutrality just, is a continual practice, but it's so imperative when we are trying to help other people gain their own insight, bolster their own soul senses. It is our obligation to keep our own self out of that and be in neutrality and mastering our energy. So thanks for starting us off with this great topic.
Yay! Awesome. Okay.
All right. Well, friends, as we do, we will close out this segment with a little meditation. So let's go ahead and take a nice big deep breath in, again, deep down into your belly. And exhale out. And allow yourself to feel the weight of yourself in your chair, or if you're lying down, just let yourself feel the weight of your body. But as you feel the weight and the physicality of your body, just let yourself acknowledge that bright energy in the core of you, that beautiful ball of light that we activated at the beginning. And the knowingness that you are of the divine, and that you have the power to embody the divinity of you in your physicality. And with that, we thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Mystic Revolution.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. And don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
This series is really for you if you have mystic sensibilities or interests, or if you've been practicing forever. This is a place for all of us to join together